Hello everyone, welcome to my video lecture on GPAT 2020 question analysis pharmacology part 2. I have made part 1. If you missed it, please check my channel, and this is my channel. Please subscribe my channel to get pharma video contents. Let's begin. Now, in continuation with the previous part, in this part I am going to explain about 13 pharmacology questions with detailed analysis. The first one is, the complexation of quinine with hexyl salicylate is an example of absorption by. Now, when you see quinine, quinine is an alkaloid which contains a nitrogen. The moment you see nitrogen, nitrogen has got a lone pair of electrons and it can acquire a positive charge. Salicylate, it is a derivative of carboxylic acid which can get a negative charge. Absorption will not occur with charged molecules. Unionized molecules will get absorbed because the biological membranes are non-polar in nature. But when you combine this quinine and salicylate, the charges will get neutralized and it becomes an ion pair and it will get absorbed into the biological tissues. So this process is called ion pair transport absorption. Now, convective transport is also known as pore transport. Now, convection means mass transfer. When a particular amount of pressure is applied, the mass transfer will occur. Usually you can see this in case of ointments and gels, wherein a little amount of pressure is applied to increase the absorption. Now, pinocytosis, pina in Greek means to drink. Cyta means cell. This is literally nothing but cell drinking. Cells can take up liquids in this process called pinocytosis. Now, facilitated transport is with the help of a transport proteins. They will help in transporting the molecule or absorption of the molecules, and that is called facilitated transport. So, the quinine with hexyl salicylate is an example of ion pair transport. Next one. Now, which of the following will result very closest value to the glomerular filtration rate? Now, you need to understand what you mean by this glomerular filtration rate. This is related to nephron or kidney ability. Whatever the blood we have will completely get filtered in the nephron. In the nephron, there is a part called as glomerular capillaries, through which blood is passed and filtration occurs. So, glomerular filtration rate means at what amount per minute. So, the blood will get filtered at these glomerulars, and that filtration rate is known as glomerular filtration rate. Usually per minute 90 to 120 ml of blood will get filtered. So this is what is normal glomerular filtration rate. Now, which of the following will result very closest value means, in this creatinine clearance will be very closest to glomerular filtration rate. Now, creatinine is a metabolic product of creatine. Now, creatine is from muscle. Usually the muscle will be storing ATP with the help of creatine phosphate. Creatine non-enzymatically metabolized to creatinine, and that creatinine passes through the blood and it gets filtered through this glomerular filtration. Now, creatine, whatever the blood is getting filtered, creatine will get filtered in the same manner. It will not get reabsorbed. So the clearance of creatinine will be very much equal to glomerular filtration rate. So the answer is creatinine clearance. Let us say about this one, albumin clearance. Albumin is a protein which will not get cleared in higher amounts. It has to be retained in the body. Only this occurs in case of nephron damage. When there is an extensive nephron damage is there, then only albumin loses out of the body. It is called as albuminuria. So this is not. Now, insulin clearance. Insulin will also get filtered, but 60% is filtered through glomerular filtration rate, whereas 40% it will be secreted with the help of this peritubular capillaries. So only 60% is equated with GFR, so it cannot be considered for a closest value. See, measure of blood urea nitrogen. Blood urea nitrogen indicates the functioning of liver as well as kidney. The reason is, in the liver you have a urea cycle wherein urea will get generated. Urea is a waste product which has to be excreted through kidney. So the levels of urea in blood indicates the functioning of liver and kidney. It is nowhere related to glomerular filtration rate. This is not true. So creatinine clearance is closely related to glomerular filtration rate. Next one. Now see, ion trapping is an important process in drug distribution with potential therapeutic benefit. It is defined as. We need to understand what you mean by this ion trapping is. See, ions will not get absorbed through biological membranes. Let us take an example and see what happens with that. Imagine you have taken an aspirin, acetyl salicylic acid. Now aspirin, what happens with ionization of aspirin in stomach as well as in intestine? Well, let us say it. In stomach, we have HCl, it is high acidic environment. In high acidic environment, it remains as such. Because this is also acid, in stomach you have strong acid, it remains as such. Whereas when it gets into intestine, it is exposed to a little bit of alkaline environment. What happens? This alkali will takes up this proton and it is converted to COO minus. Now see what has happened. In acidic pH, it remained as such, unionized. Whereas in basic pH, what happened? It is converted into ionic form. So the moral is acidic drugs will be unionized in acidic pH, whereas the acidic drugs will become ionized in basic pH. If it is ionized, it cannot pass through the biological membranes and it will get trapped in that compartment. That is what is known as ion trapping. Let us see with one more example with an alkali. Let's take, you have taken an alkaloid which has got an alkali group. Now this alkali group, imagine if it is in basic pH. This is already a basic molecule. In the basic pH, it remains as such. Whereas when you take it in an acidic environment, it is converted into an ion. The proton will come and gets these electrons and it is converted into ion. So what has happened? Basic drugs or basic molecules remain unionized in basic pH, whereas in acidic pH, they are ionized. If it is ionized, it will be trapped in that particular compartment. So this is what is the concept and defined. How do you define it? See this. Now understand, you need to understand each and every option and then think about it. Now see this. An acidic drug will accumulate on more basic side of the membrane. What has happened with acidic drug? On more basic side, it is converted into ion and it will be trapped in that compartment. A basic drug will get accumulate on more acidic side. What happens with a basic drug? This basic drug in the presence of this acidic pH converted into ion and it is trapped. So this is what is the concept and right answer is this one. So this is completely based on ion trapping concept. Go through it again, you will get this clearly. Now next one, which of the following neurotransmitter is formed on demand and act immediately? Now see, out of all these neurotransmitters, this one fits that requirement. It forms on demand and it acts immediately. The half-life is in only seconds. This is a gas which will diffuses immediately and immediately acts on the surrounding tissue. And this neurotransmitter is formed by enzymes called nitric oxide synthesis. The job is to synthesize nitric oxide from arginine. When arginine is converted to citrulline, it releases nitric oxide. It immediately passes to the surrounding tissue, acts there, and it immediately gets metabolized. The half-life is only in seconds. So the neurotransmitter that is formed on demand and act immediately is nitric oxide. Next one. Now, autorhythmicity is present in which of the following group of tissues? Understand what you mean by autorhythmicity. Auto means self. Rhythm means, in case of muscles and everything, it's a kind of contractions. Usually the contraction or the tissue's response will be in accordance with nervous stimulation. But certain tissues, they have got self-stimulation. Now, where do you see such kind of self-stimulation? It is because of SCA node and AV node. Cardiac tissues do not need neural stimulation. They will have their own contractions. That is the reason why even if a heart is removed out of an animal, heart gives certain amount of contractions. That is called as autorhythmicity. Now the same thing you find it in visceral smooth muscle. Visceral smooth muscle has got ANS, autonomic nervous system innervation. Even though the neuron transmission is not there, still the visceral smooth muscle will have certain amount of contractions. That property is called as autorhythmicity. So cardiac muscle and visceral smooth muscle will show autorhythmicity. Now see, skeletal muscles without nervous stimulation, they cannot work. If any nerve damage to skeletal muscle occurs, that results in paralysis because they are completely dependent upon nerve stimulation. Now, neuronal tissue, the same thing. Neuronal tissue needs the proper working of channels. Without them, they cannot work properly. Now, skeletal muscle, again, the moment you see skeletal muscle, it is ruled out. So, the answer is cardiac muscle and visceral smooth muscle. Moving to the next one. Which one of the following statement is true for cancer cells? Now, we need to understand certain cancer biology. Now, cancer means uncontrolled cell division. What happens in cancer? The cell continue to multiply, and it forms a kind of tumor mass. Now, in order to continue to multiply, what does it need? It needs growth factors. Now, human body has got a certain type of growth factors. The growth factors will release when there is a requirement and it results in growth spurt, and after that it won't release regularly. So the growth factors are from endocrinal glands. Now see, you need to understand what you mean by endocrinal gland is. Endocrine gland, the hormones will get released at adenohypophysis and hypothalamus region. They travel through the blood vessel and then they will act on target tissue. So the release is somewhere and the action is in the peripheral target. It is somewhere. Now coming back to the cancer cells. Cancer cells has got certain oncogenes because of which it can synthesize its own growth factors. The growth factors will release it from the cell. They will be acting on the same cell, or they can act on adjacent cell. Now compare this one. Endocrine means the hormone is synthesized somewhere else and it acts on some peripheral target. In case of cancer, the growth hormones are synthesized by the same cell. It acts on the same cell. It is called as autocrinal stimulation. Auto means self. Autocrinal stimulation, or it can act on adjacent cell, which is also known as paracrinal stimulation. So cancer cells has got this unique feature. They synthesize their own growth factors, and the released growth factors will act on the same cell or adjacent cell, and that results in again continuous cell multiplication. This is what happens in cancer cells. Now look at the options. Cancer cells are highly sensitive to growth inhibitory signals. If this is true, body will stop this multiplication of cancer. So it is not, they are not sensitive to growth signals. Cancer cells produce oncoproteins in the absence of growth factors, in the absence of growth factors and external stimuli. Now say this. This is what happens here. What has happened here? They started producing growth factors even though the external stimulation is there, and they started acting on the same cells. So this answer is correct. Look at the other one. Oncoproteins produced by cancer cells act on neighboring cells. True, but they also act on the same cell. This is important. Autocrinal stimulation. That is the reason why they cause multiplication. Now next one, cancer cells require stimulation by growth factors. This is true, but they are not absolutely dependent on that stimulation. They can synthesize their own growth factors which act on the same cell. Now see, you need to figure a particular option which exactly suits the question. See, this is partially true. This is also partially true, but this is absolutely true. So this answer is the correct answer. Moving to the next one. Now, meloxicam belongs to which class of NSAID? See, this is completely based on a classification question. NSAIDs can be classified like this: non-selective COX inhibitor, preferential COX-2 inhibitors, selective COX-2 inhibitors, and some other classes. Now, out of this, meloxicam belongs to preferential COX-2 inhibitor. So this is straight away this option. This is a classification based question. Next one. Now, two-pore domain potassium ion channels are opened by which one of the category of anesthetics? So you need to select an answer which is acting on this potassium channels. Now look at them. Opioid analgesics will be acting on mu, kappa, delta receptors. So this is not ruled out. Barbiturates, benzodiazepines, both of them will be acting on GABA A type of receptors. So this is also ruled out. What are you left with? Halogenated inhalation anesthetics. This is how you can eliminate answers even though you don't know the exact answer. These are very popular, which you know what kind of receptors they will be acting upon. Whereas this one, so the leftover one is only potassium channels. Now what happens in CNS is, see, in a cell there is something called as resting membrane potential. That means in the rest, the membrane potential inside the cell is negative. If it becomes positive, then it is called as depolarization, and depolarization causes activation of the cells. If it becomes even more negative, the process is called as hyperpolarization. It reduces CNS activity. Now what happens with potassium channel? When potassium channel is opened, potassium goes out of the cell. Potassium carries a positive charge. If the positive is going out of the cell, what happens? More negative increases inside the cell, and that is what results in hyperpolarization, and that causes anesthetic activity. Neuronal stimulation is inhibited. Reversible loss of sensation will be there. So this is how the drugs will act. Moving further, next one. The drug concentration between minimum effective concentration and maximum safe concentration is called. Now you need to understand particular dose response curves. Now usually the dose response curve will be like this. So this is in concentration, this is in time scale. Now, so you need certain amount of drug concentration in the blood to show therapeutic activity, and that minimum concentration is known as minimum effective concentration. Again, there is a ceiling amount of concentration after which it results in toxicity. So this is called as maximum safe concentration. Now between this, whatever the concentration you have will become therapeutic range. So this is the therapeutic range. You can give the dose in these intervals to get maximum effect without showing any toxicity. So this is nothing but therapeutic range. Now therapeutic ratio, therapeutic index, both of them are nothing but LD50 by ED50, which talks about safety of the drug. So both of them are same, and this one will determine safety of the drug. It has to be as low as possible. Toxic range will talk about toxicity ranges. So the answer is therapeutic range. Moving to the next one. Drug products that contain same therapeutic moiety but different salts, esters or complexes are called as. But before getting into this, you need to understand what all the terms are. See, pharmaceutical equivalent. Understand this one. Pharmaceutical equivalent means it should have a same active drug. Same active drug plus dose should be same, and then dosage form should be same, and then this is what is required. So in order to be a pharmaceutically equivalent, two drugs need to have the same active drug, same dose and same dosage form. Then it is called as pharmaceutical equivalent. Whereas pharmaceutical alternative means they will have the same active drug, but they can differ in, there could be a difference in dosage or salt or ester. Let me give you one example. You know tetracycline. Now tetracycline is available in tetracycline phosphate or tetracycline hydrochloride. The active ingredient is same, tetracycline, but there is a difference in salts and esters. What is the question about? Same therapeutic moiety, it is the same, tetracycline, but what is the difference in salts or complexes? So this is answer. Now let us see about the remaining two also. Therapeutic alternative and therapeutic equivalent. Now therapeutic equivalent is pharmaceutical equivalent plus bioequivalent. Now we have seen what is a pharmaceutical equivalent is. The active drug, doses, everything has to be similar. Bioequivalent means when it is taken into the body, the bioavailability, every clinical parameter should be equal. Then it is called as therapeutic equivalent. Whereas therapeutic alternative, see, therapy, you are giving an alternative. That means you can have a different active ingredient, but it should belong to same pharmacological class. Let me give you one example. Let's say someone has got pain. If he is taking paracetamol, it will treat pain, fever and inflammation. Aspirin will become a therapeutic alternative. It is also an NSAID. This one is also an NSAID. The pharmacological class is same, but ingredient is different. That is called as therapeutic alternative. Pause the video and go through the terms again, which are important. Now, the next one. Now, except one of the following pairs represent drugs used in the treatment of glaucoma are and their primary mechanism. So select the wrong pair. Now glaucoma is due to increased intraocular pressure. Intraocular pressure is increased. Now how the drugs need to act? They need to reduce the inflow or increase the outflow. So that you will reduce the ocular pressure. Now understand this one. Glaucoma is increased intraocular pressure. So what you need to do, the intraocular pressure is because of fluid presence. So you need to reduce that fluid. How can you do that? Either you can increase the outflow. So that you will be sending out the liquid, or decrease the inflow so that the formation of fluid will be reduced. See, topical beta-adrenergic blockers, myotics, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, prostaglandin analogs, all of them can be used to treat glaucoma. But look at their mechanism of action. Decrease aqueous outflow. What are you doing? If you decreasing outflow, you are increasing the amount of fluid and you are increasing intraocular pressure. No, this one cannot be right. You are worsening the condition, and adrenergic blockers does not do it. Now, increase aqueous outflow, you are sending fluid down so that you will relieve the condition. Decrease aqueous formation, you are reducing the fluid formation so you can treat the condition. Increase aqueous outflow, again you are sending out that aqueous fluid so you are reducing outflow. Now look at this. You need simple presence of mind to answer this question. If you are decreasing aqueous outflow, what are you doing? You are increasing the fluid presence inside the eye and you are worsening the condition. So this is the answer. So even though you don't know exactly the mechanism of action, by simply thinking about the condition glaucoma, you can answer this question. Moving further. Now, excuse me. Identify antiarrhythmic drug that increases duration of QT wave and decrease the sinus rate, whereas it has no effect on QRS complex. Now this is what is ECGs. The P wave indicates atrial systole, whereas QRS is about ventricular systole, whereas T wave is about ventricular diastole. Now this is what is a typical depolarization curve in cardiac cells. Now see, look at them. Arrhythmia can be treated by all kind of these drugs. Amiodarone is a potassium channel blocker. Quinidine, sodium channel blocker. Verapamil, calcium channel blocker. Lidocaine, again sodium channel blocker. Now among all of them, potassium channel blockers will increase this QT duration. Why? See, potassium channels will be acting here. They are responsible for repolarization. If you block them, what happens? The repolarization will be slowed and it becomes like this. So what happens here? The duration here is increased. That means you are increasing the duration for systole. So the gap between the systole and diastole increases. That is what is increasing QT interval. So it increases QT interval, but it does not have any effect on this QRS complex because it is delayed. Sinus rate, the normal beats per minute, will get reduced. So this is the answer. The other drugs like quinidine, verapamil, lidocaine does not cause these effects. Now the last one, identify the diuretic which causes hyperuricemia. That means increased uric acid in blood. Tend to raise calcium, increases the levels of calcium and causes magnesium depletion. That means reduces magnesium. Now see, out of this, furosemide is a loop diuretic. Acetazolamide, carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Chlorothiazide is thiazide diuretics. Mannitol is osmotic diuretics. Now hyperuricemia, magnesium depletion. Both of them are the adverse effects of loop as well as thiazide diuretics. Both of them has got the same thing. But the important thing is increasing the levels of calcium. So in the body they will increase the levels of calcium. So this is shown by thiazide diuretics. How? Let me explain it. See, thiazide diuretics will be acting on this sodium chloride symporter. So this is thiazide mechanism of action. So when they block sodium chloride symporter, sodium chloride will go out of the body. So that reduces the levels of sodium inside this distal convoluted cell. When sodium levels are reduced inside this cell, it is compensated by an antipode. It takes up sodium from the blood. So here is the blood component. See, this is blood. From the blood, sodium gets inside the cell. It is exchanged with a calcium. Calcium gets into the cell. That is the reason why in the blood calcium levels are increased. This is known as hypercalcemia. To compensate this, the urinary calcium will get reabsorbed. So this is how thiazides will raise calcium levels. So the answer here is chlorothiazide. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, do comment, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.